So welcome everybody to the Knative Community Meetup. My name is Maria Cruz. I'm a program manager in the Google Open Source Programs Office. And let's go ahead and get started. We have some short update about public steering meeting. No, wait a minute. Sorry, that's a very old agenda. Okay, here we go. We have working group updates, TOC updates. Vinny, you wanna start with that?
I can do the TOC updates, I guess.
Remembers.
Not sure who keeps indenting that funny. So there is a set of requirements for what a GA, everyone can, license it, and we're going to change the version numbers to be post 0 point whatever. There's a doc that has requirements that steering and trademark and TOC. The link is in there, but wait, do you mean the agenda doc, Dave? And so steering and TOC and trademark have gone in and have worked out what those requirements are. I don't have the next item for new members. Does someone from steering want to give the latest? Not a good time for me to be losing my voice.
Yeah, I added that there. I was just going to go and say that we have 2 new TOC members. We have Jules and Dave.
Hey.
Welcome. Woo.
Thank you.
I don't have a speech.
And then the next thing is just, if you're curious about what the specs part of that release stuff looks like, there are a couple of PRs that are currently undergoing review for eventing to make those look a lot more like the serving specs.
Perfect. And the links are on the agenda doc. We have a general update by Carlos.
For me, we are continuing releasing every 6 weeks. I see that as a milestone, right? Not all projects can do that. So impressed with the productivity team and automation. So version 0.23 got cut out, and in 6 weeks, we might or might have 24, or we might have 1.0. So we're working on that, and the docs are available for 0.23. And the blog post will be posted later this week. I just need to finish it up. So new version of Knative.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Carlos. And we have eventing. Ahmed?
Yes. So there's a new release, 0.23. There is a dot release that is the latest one. Check it out. We upgraded the core sources APIs all to V1. So some of the old API versions are no longer available on master and on 0.23. Also, we did a cleanup of some of the tools that some of you folks are used to use from eventing contrib repo, like event display, that moved to eventing itself. Also, there are right now you can actually install in-memory channel controller without having eventing core. There is a very cool document of how to do that as a demo. We also are working right now. There is a lot of discussions around experimental feature that happened over the past couple of months, and we finally agreed on how to incorporate experimental features in eventing. There is a pull request with the documentation of that process. You will find the link for. Look at it, and the work started to incorporate experimental features. And also, there is at least 3 experimental features that will be suggested very soon. They are in flight, so keep an eye on how to have eventing with experimental features that you can enable or disable. We did a lot of work on the specs. I will add, there is like a very thorough rewrite of the eventing specs. I will add the links to the pull request there if you want to check them out. And a lot of work is happening on conformance testing using the new testing frameworks that we have. That is also so that we make sure that the implementation is conforming to the specs. And definitely there are a lot of things that were overlooked or that were not really conforming that are being worked on. That is it from my side, unless somebody else from eventing would like to add any extra points.
If you haven't already tried out the conformance tests with your brokers and channels and everything else, I suggest you do. It's fun, a lot of fun, makes you happy.
I've got the next thing. Hello, my name is Omer Bensadon. I'm a lead along with Carlos Santana in the UX working group. We've got a couple of asks from folks, and these can be ideally people who are not core contributors, actually. For the first thing is that we're looking for users to interview for the new Getting Started experience. The less you know about Knative, the better. If you're interested, I put the sign up link below, but feel free to reach out to me. What I can offer you is a Knative t-shirt, if that sweetens the pot. They are very soft. Anyone who has one can vouch for that. Also, you get a sneak peek of what's coming down the pike, and you'll get to have a sort of front row seat to making changes to how we introduce Knative to new users. And your opinion will matter a lot. So that I feel is an incentive in and of itself. Yeah, DM me on Slack for more information, or just sign up without warning me. I'll get an email and it'll be a pleasant surprise. We're also looking for people who are interested in contributing to the new Knative site. So I have some links down below, the site link, the roadmap for the site, and then our latest milestone, which is early beta. I want to pause and give a shout out to Carlos Santana, Julian Friedman, Gabriel, Fabian, who are both on the call, Marcus, a bunch of people who have just like jumped in and like helped make the site awesome. Carlos and Jules did a lot of the infrastructure work, and everyone else is just chipping into Bike Shed About Colors on the homepage, but fixing a lot of stuff in the process. So thank you all. If you want to get involved in that, the UX working group has a meeting every Tuesday around actually this time, so this exact time yesterday, or you can just pick up an issue from the milestone. Yeah, if you have any questions, don't be afraid to reach out.
Great. So it sounds like we came to a wrap up with the working group updates. So we are going to dive into a demo. Evan, let me see if you are able to co-present, co-host.
Yes, let
You are.
me get that going. Okay, let's see.
You should be able to present.
Yep, I am just trying to figure out. I think I want to present a portion of the screen.
Great.
Because I'm going to be going back and forth, whoops, between the presentation and various other materials. So let's see. Is that fairly... okay. Is that pretty visible for everyone?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. So why am I here and why am I talking about WordPress? So I've been working on Knative for a while, and one of the fun things about Knative is that it and Kubernetes both are designed to run lots of different software. And that includes running software that maybe wasn't designed with Kubernetes in mind. And WordPress is a great example of that. You know, there's lots of places you can go and you can pay like $5 a month or something like that to get your WordPress site hosted. So this is clearly more about learning than it is about being the strictly most cost-effective option. But I wanted to be able to get some experience actually, you know, using Knative. Maybe it wasn't exactly the way it was intended, but with some real software that was big enough that I couldn't just like change the shape of it and make it, you know, do the things I wanted. And, you know, I wanted a place to have a blog. And so I figured that's kind of an excuse. So learning by doing, I feel like, is really important because it's really easy to convince yourself that you know what's going on. And then later on, it turns out that that's not really true. So let's see. I wanted to be able to run real software. So that includes stuff like upgrades. And I learned a lot of stuff about Kubernetes upgrades, including scary etcd surgery when you screw up your quorum and you have 2 nodes down that you reinstalled. And you're trying to figure out, how do I get quorum for etcd when it expects 3 nodes and I have only 1. Knative has not been the painful part here, which is great, but it's given me more empathy for people running Kubernetes on their own. And I wanted it to not be too expensive. So you'll actually see the hardware setup at the end. I did a blog about it because I had a blog and I needed some content. So Kubernetes documentation actually has, you know, how to run WordPress in MySQL. And you can see it's under stateful applications. And they show you how to set up MySQL and then how to set up WordPress. And you'll notice again, they're using a persistent volume claim. They are using a deployment, but I think they are mounting it in a read write once mode. So their deployment can only scale to 1. So that's a thing you could do. But I feel like we should be able to do better. This is a web app. Why does it need a stateful set? So it turns out they're adding a volume mount for var HTML, which WordPress will use to install plugins and stuff like that. Okay, what can we do here? So if we actually go in and look at this Docker image, the nice thing is there is this Dockerfile template that does some stuff, but at the end, basically it says your entry point is Docker entry point, and then they've got a bunch of different varieties of image. But here is where they all do their setup. And so you can kind of get in here and see what it does. And basically they're packaging some stuff and they're copying it into the target directory, which is pwd. And if you go back and sort of dig that out, that's that var HTML. Does some other stuff, and then it starts Apache. So it's basically, here's a container. Let's stuff some stuff in it, and you know, let's put some stuff in there and start it. If it's already there, then don't do it again. So, woo, that's a pretty simple Docker file. And I just downloaded and unzipped the Nanospace theme, which is the one I'm using, and downloaded it, installed it. And here's where we'll show the final product. And so this is actually cold starting over there. It's actually in my basement, running off my DSL line. And here we go, it's up and running. And if you wanted to see, the cable management is a little neater now, but it's basically 3 of these Dell thin clients with about 8 gigs of memory on each one. And yeah, and so this was my first attempt, build that Docker file, stick it in a Knative service, put in a couple secrets, and point it to MySQL from an operator. Yeah, it is HA. I've actually unplugged one of these and everything keeps working. So that's kind of cool. So my first attempt, it's all working. That's awesome. And then I go to write a post and it takes me like 5 minutes and it scales down. And then I'm logged out, which is weird. Because when I come back, it's asking me to log in again. So digging around a little bit, each run generates a unique auth key and some other variables that are used to set various cookies. And so I create a secret for that. And I go in and I set WordPress secure auth key and logged in key and nonce key. It's pretty boring to do that, but copy paste and you're off to the races. And this is actually more recent, so this is hinting a little bit at other stuff I needed to do. Great, so now I'm not getting logged out anymore. And I try putting together that first post, and I upload this image, and I go to post it, and then I go and check in 5 minutes, and the image is gone, which doesn't seem right. So yeah, it looks like WordPress stores images on local disk too. And since we want to be able to scale out WordPress, that's probably not great. So yeah, what can we do? It turns out other people have had this problem. They've tried to run WordPress in a somewhat more automated fashion. And there's a couple of different S3 plugins, but this one is, it says it's lightweight. It seemed pretty easy to install and didn't have any licensing requirements. And so that felt like what I was looking for, since I was looking for do this on a budget and kind of hack things together. So that's awesome. And at this point, I realized that downloading this and unpacking it and everything else is probably not the awesome thing I wanted to do. And so I go and make a 2-stage Docker file, and you can see that I'm downloading these with curl and unzip. And so I need an image with curl and unzip, and I didn't really feel like I needed those in WordPress. So here we go. I pull out Ubuntu and get this stuff, unpack it all into export themes and export plugins and stuff like that. And there is a little bit of customization that needs to be added to this S3 endpoint. Because remember, I'm doing this on the cheap. And so I don't really want to be paying an S3 bill every month and having stuff go in and out of my house. So I'm actually using a Ceph object gateway. And so my next, that says MySQL from operator, but it shouldn't. This is so the way this works now is when you go in and you, here we go. This is correctly. Oh, look, it scaled down to 0 again. if so this is the dashboard side of things. And here on media, I can upload a bunch of stuff. And you can see that there's this URL here. And if we go over here, what it's called exactly. So we've got revisions, we've got replica sets, we've got deployments, we've got services. Get all doesn't actually get all. Okay, well, we will load up Octant and go over to the WordPress. HTTP proxies. So here in the site, skip over all of that. So for stuff to content uploads, I rewrite it and send it to the S3 service. And for everything else, I rewrite things and send it to the Knative external service, and I set the host name to that of the Knative service. So I could be using domain mapping for this, but since I want some pieces of the URL to go to one service and some pieces to go somewhere else, I use the Contour HTTP proxy. And so this is working. My media uploads work. If I want to add a new one, let's see. Now I need to see if I can actually find an image. Let's see. Okay. And so there's a cropped image of my head, which I used for testing. And so, yeah, that's all working. Except that the cold start sometimes takes a really long time. Let's see. Let's look at just WordPress. Because now that I've got a Kubernetes cluster, I can run all sorts of stuff in it. So you can see I have a MySQL, and I have and I have a and I have one instance of this, but I can also actually. Okay, I have no idea what's going on there. Let's go back to kube control. So here are my revisions. And so I can actually take you back to before I fix this. And let's see, edit. Okay. So instead of saying traffic is latest revision, let's say revision WordPress. I think this one should do it. Okay. Oh, it's called revision name. So now, if we open up the blog, it's going to take a little bit longer. And a little bit longer. And a little bit longer. And eventually you'll get upstream request timeout, which is Envoy speak for it took more than the 15 seconds I expected. And eventually it will start up and it will work. Ta-da. And then everything is quick and so forth again. So, you know, going and loading this post, you know, everything works quick as long as the container sticks around. And then as soon as the container goes away, we're back to slow cold start city. Yeah, I could increase that 15 seconds, but 15 seconds is kind of a really long time to wait. And so, yeah, I go to load this again and spin, spin, spin. So it's great that you can just take one of these things and ship it in here. And then you're like, oh, why is cold start so bad? And it turns out if we actually go in and look at that entry point, every time it's starting up, it's discovering, oh, wait, I need to do this. Let me tar up everything in these file paths and copy it over to a new directory. What if instead we did that once and we built it into the Docker image? Oops. And so if we go and look at my actual latest Docker file, oh, well, let's look at me. Here we go. You can see at the end, I run the entry point with the command line true, which does that copy once, and then you don't have to copy it every single time. And so if we go back and switch back to WordPress 15, we'll just say latest revision true. And then we will close that. And now we can see that rather than upstream request timeout and it taking about 20 seconds or so to start, it's still an annoyingly long cold start. And I am looking forward to all the magic that Jules wants to do to make this stuff faster. There's probably some stuff in building the image that could make it faster too. But it actually loads within the timeout. And so the last thing was, you know, I said, hey, I'm going to live with this and do upgrades. And so if we go to the WordPress dashboard, right now, everything is actually up to date, but WordPress will actually notify you, hey, you need to reinstall, you know, it offers to reinstall this, you know, WordPress version. But remember, if someone stops looking at the blog for 5 minutes, we're going to delete all of the pods. And so that reinstall is not really going to stick. But instead, in here, we've actually got everything versioned. So I just need to build a new image. You can see that right now I'm sticking with WordPress 5.7, and we'll pick up the minor versions there. If the Nanospace theme or the S3 uploads theme has a newer version, I need to go in there manually. But the nice thing is I've got Git tracking all of this. So there's no like, oh, what happened? How do I go back? Yeah, and it scales on requests. So if someone wants to load test my blog, it should work just fine. And actually, that makes me think of one more thing I should probably do. I've got container concurrency set to 100. Let's set that to 10 so that if someone wants to load test it, we really get more pods spinning up. And so in a few minutes, we'll have that working. Yeah, that's basically it. If anyone's got questions or wants to, wants to ask, how'd you do this or that? Looks like it's up and running. So let's see. 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, about 5 seconds. And the old one's shutting down. And I don't know. I actually really like looking at this stuff in the UI. So if anyone does want to throw a load test at it, I've got gigabit, so you can probably squash these dells first. But let's see, workloads. Yeah, go for it. If anyone's got Hey or Siege or something like that installed, the site is offby1.dev with HTTPS. And so, yeah, cert manager's managing that. And yeah. Oh, and if you're curious, I've actually made my home k8s-config repo public. I'm in the process of migrating everything to GitOps using FluxCD, but this stuff isn't there yet. Oh, and I guess the one other fun little hack is this is actually something that I built for Knative, but this is a really cheap and cheerful log aggregator. So we can actually go in and look at the WordPress logs. I complain about this a little on my blog because these are all JSON logs. And so I get lots of really cool information here, and they are super hard to read. So I guess this one is about successfully creating the logger, which isn't too interesting. Q container is starting somewhere in here. So this is a log from user container. And WordPress not found, copying now. This would be the one that where actually, I'm not sure why it says that, because it looks like it's running WordPress 15 here, which is the one that was fixed. So yeah, probably my next fun project is going to be a log viewer for those, because I don't really want to run a whole ELK stack. Oh, nice. Someone got the load up. Cool. So yeah, that's all open for questions. How did you do this? Whatever.
While folks are thinking about their questions, I will be launching a poll. If everyone could provide also some feedback, that's really helpful with these meetups. And Evan, I'm wondering if you saw, I think there was a question in the chat.
Oh, yes.
From Carlos.
The question was, how easy is it to set up Ceph as an S3 server? So I'm actually using Rook to manage Ceph. And let me see. And I've got some custom resources. And so I've got a Ceph cluster resource that has a bunch of stuff in it. And this is actually checked in, so you can see it. So you need to create one of these and set the values appropriately, which is kind of annoying. And then you just create a Ceph object store. And most of this stuff is defaulted. So all the stuff I really needed was the gateway and the port. Yeah, I think that was it. And let's see. And Ceph is actually one of the things I have under here. So yeah, you can see this is the object store. I said replication, I'm using erasure coding. It's pretty easy. The one difficult part that's actually, I don't remember if it's working or not right now, is doing SSL between Contour and the Ceph Object Gateway. Yeah, there is TLS within the cluster. The question was the logging thing. So the basic logging thing is pretty much, if you go to Knative, actually, I'm going to use the new one. So this is the new site that folks have been working on, that Omar was talking about earlier. And in the administration guide, there's a section on logging. And this is basically the setup that I've got with a collector and a shared volume with Nginx. If you want to actually see what I'm doing, it's under metrics. I have a fluent bit set up. The one extra thing is that the collector, I also have a little log rotate container running, because otherwise I run out of space. I put like, it's a 40 gig volume or something like that. And so log rotate is how I'm getting those extra things. And it doesn't actually work great with Nginx because the .log, it recognizes the suffix, but all the other ones, it's like, it's binary and you download it. Although viewing it in the web browser is painful enough that downloading it isn't that much worse. Cert Manager, the Cert Manager is actually for external SSL. Internally, I think it's just a self-signed cert. And there was one thing I needed to change just a little bit. So you'll see there's this S3 endpoint, and you need to override the endpoint parameter to get it to point away from S3 and get it to point to your own AWS host, which is, in this case, Ceph. And that Ceph is actually not exposed to the outside world except through that HTTP proxy. So I could probably show you the password and stuff for that, but I'm not going to just because. And then if people, actually, it's easier to read the intent from this YAML. So Oh, this is copying in a little bit of extra stuff. I'd forgotten I did that. But here's AWS host and AWS port from a config map. And oh, this is the one other piece that I forgot earlier for Carlos that you need is an object bucket claim to say how big your S3 bucket is. And I've set it to 5 gigs for now because I can't really imagine uploading more than 5 gigs of images. But I'm sure when I do, I will figure that out. And I always pick these numbers low enough that I'm going to have to figure it out at some point, but it's going to be a while for 5 gigs. Yeah, so so this is not all scaled to 0, just to be real clear. Let's see if we go back to WordPress and we look at the pods. Okay, I am guessing that someone. Let's see. I don't think you actually broke it, but you did manage to get 45 pods running. It looks like things got pending. I'm not sure that I'd recommend WordPress because you'll see there is this MySQL database in addition to the 45 pods that tried to spin up to handle Dave's load test. I'm actually curious how that turned out. So you'd still need a place to run this MySQL database. I don't remember what resources it needs. I'm kind of wondering. Yeah, it looks like the API server is really not happy at this point. I'm going to have to go in and debug later. Yeah, I don't think we want to move from a static site generator to WordPress, though. I picked WordPress mostly to prove that it could work, and not to not as a recommended. Yeah, I should probably set max pods and probably also change container concurrency back up from 10. Well, if necessary, I can always cut things at the router and then fix it. That's awesome. Let's see if that works. Yes, and definitely sign up for more demos. I am out.
Thanks, Evan. I just dropped that into the chat. There's a Google form for anyone interested in submitting their own demos. And again, I'd like to call everyone's attention to the survey that I have relaunched. I'm not sure if everyone can see it, but it should have popped up into your screen. I can end it and relaunch it again if that is helpful. If that's not popping up, the poll or the survey is aimed at making these meetups better for the community. And I don't know if there's any, it looks like there's more questions for you, Evan, apart from congratulations on your excellent demo. It looks like there's another question from Carlos about any feedback to Knative based on this experiment.
Knative was certainly the easiest part to manage. you know, a lot of the rest of this was much more sort of exploratory, and having the versioning was really nice to know that if I screwed stuff up, I could roll it back. Domain mapping, it turns out, didn't help in this case because the S3 plugin wanted to just redirect you to S3. If I wrote my own S3 plugin, I'd probably proxy it, and then domain mapping would work for me. Okay.
Jules is dropping down in the chat, but it would if we supported volumes, so you didn't need the proxying.
If I had a read write many volume, then I wouldn't need the proxying. But I actually don't have a read write many volume easily accessible. So I was perfectly happy with the S3 as a architecture choice. But yeah, agreed. If you wanted to scale this out and you were really stuck on files, then that would be a solution. Wow, you folks managed to get one of these nodes up to a load average of 68. They only got 4 CPUs, so that's pretty high. Yeah, you could use SAS for the SQL and S3 if you were in a public cloud. I just, I've had bad experiences with running demos in public clouds and then coming back 2 weeks later to a $100 bill. So I wanted something where the cost was basically my electricity. Okay. Mitigating the cold start. So I think a lot of this, I mean, one thing would be not running on a 1.5 gigahertz processor. Getting a slightly beefier processor would probably make it go a lot faster. Beyond that, I suspect warming up caches might help. One thing I haven't experimented with is the different PHP runtimes, and there's sort of a balance between how fast do you run the code the first time and how fast does it run steady state. And like in Java, you can tune the JIT a little bit in one direction or the other. I don't know about that in PHP. Actually, I know almost no PHP. So min-scale would help as well. In this particular case, another thing I could do would be not setting the concurrent connections to 10 and instead increasing them to like 100 or 200. I kind of deliberately made it a bring the pain in terms of cold starts. But min-scale 1 would also help a lot. But I was sort of more looking for the pure experience than the, pragmatic solution here. And, what happens if you try to do things the really principled way with software that already exists.
We still have about 5 more minutes. Are there more questions, comments for Evan? Feel free to come off the mic if you want to.
Yeah.
I mean, come off of mute is what I meant.
Yeah, so I think, yeah, this was a good demo. A lot of people, this is a good demo because you use stateful data. Most of the demos that people come into Knative are stateless applications, homogeneous traffic. But this is homogeneous, but using a database. So that was very cool to run it. What are the Dell machines that you're using? Are there thin clients or are there Nooks?
Thin clients.
Okay.
You can get them on eBay for just a little over $100 and put I put like 128 gig M2 drive in, which is $20, and sometimes put in another $20 of RAM.
Been 20 years, I haven't heard the word thin clients. I did it for Wall Street.
Yeah, they are Dell or Weiss 5070s mostly. A couple are the earlier generation than that. So these are, 8-watt processors. Because I've got no cooling. They are literally sitting next to my furnace. And I'd like them to not burn up.
Yeah, use them for a remote desktop. And Kubernetes, which version of Kubernetes you install?
I'm running Clear Linux. Would I choose it again? I don't know. They made the upgrade from 117 to 119 a real pain, so maybe not.
I mean, Clear Linux, but Kubernetes.
Intel Clear Linux, and then Kubernetes from upstream.
From upstream, kubeadm.
kubeadm, yep.
Yeah, cool.
Got to learn a lot about kubeadm when I accidentally broke my etcd quorum.
Okay, that's a good experience to learn kubeadm. Useful for the CKA if you're anyone's planning to use CKA.
Yeah. I sort of wanted to get the experience of, okay, what does it look like to run your own Kubernetes cluster rather than, just pick one off the shelf from your cloud vendor.
Yeah, I did the same.
It's a little bit of a pain, to be perfectly
honest. It's very easy to go to a cloud provider. It's like, I want a cluster, click.
Yep.
That's it.
And I'm very cognizant during my development that I tend to create clusters, use them for 2 hours and then throw them away. Which is a very different experience from, hey, I actually care about the data on this cluster and I'd like it to not be deleted.